Welcome to Serial Killers with Ben Carter. I'm your host, Ben Carter. In the dusty, sun-baked town of Elephant Butte, New Mexico, an inconspicuous white cargo trailer sat on the property of David Parker Ray. From the outside, it appeared to be nothing more than a commonplace storage unit, blending into the arid landscape with its weather-beaten exterior. But inside, it was a different world entirely. A world that would come to be known as the Toy Box, a chamber of horrors filled with an assortment of sadistic tools and devices, where the lines between humanity and monstrosity blurred into oblivion. It was here that David Parker Ray, a seemingly ordinary mechanic in his late 50s, would unleash unspeakable atrocities on his victims. A man of average stature with a graying beard and glasses, Ray would not have stood out in a crowd. But behind those nondescript features, there lurked a mind capable of planning and executing some of the most chilling crimes in American history. Ray's reign of terror spanned across decades, going largely undetected due to the transient nature of his victims. Many of them were women of the night, those who society had already turned its back on. Ray knew this and exploited it, selecting victims who would likely not be missed or whose claims would be met with skepticism should they manage to escape. His methods were calculated and meticulous. He didn't just physically subjugate his victims, he sought to break them mentally as well. One of his most infamous tools was the recording he played for his victims when they first woke up in his toy box. In chilling detail, he described the torture they were about to endure, a psychological assault designed to break their will to resist. Despite the gruesome nature of Ray's crimes, it wasn't until 1999, when one of his victims managed to escape, that the authorities started to uncover the horrifying extent of his actions. The woman, Cynthia Vigil, was found running down a nearby road, naked and wearing only a metal collar locked around her neck. Her harrowing account of what she had endured led the police to Ray's trailer and the shocking discovery of his toy box. The investigation that followed would reveal a labyrinth of illicit activities reaching far beyond the confines of the small New Mexican town. Evidence suggested that Ray may not have acted alone, dragging his own family and friends into his twisted world. As investigators dug deeper, they began to realize that they were dealing with a criminal whose cruelty was unparalleled and the true extent of whose crimes may never be fully known. To truly understand the backdrop of David Parker Ray's crimes, we must venture into the dusty landscapes of Elephant Butte, New Mexico. Nestled in Sierra County, this small town of roughly 1,500 people is surrounded by miles of arid desert and the sprawling man-made reservoir from which it takes its name. In the late 20th century, Elephant Butte was a quiet, isolated community, a place where neighbors knew each other and the pace of life was slow. The late 1900s was a time of economic struggle for many in rural New Mexico. Elephant Butte was far removed from the bustling metropolises and the economic opportunities they offered. The town's residents, largely blue-collar workers and retirees, were tightly knit but also fiercely private, often refraining from prying into each other's affairs. It was within this context that David Parker Ray was able to disguise his malevolent activities. While the wider world was caught up in the rapid evolution of technology and the internet, Elephant Butte seemed frozen in time. The desert town was a place of stark contrasts, its natural beauty juxtaposed with the harsh reality of life in an isolated, economically challenged community. The stunning blue of the reservoir set against the arid, barren landscapes mirrored the paradox of the town itself, a tranquil facade masking a sinister undercurrent. Elephant Butte was also a place of transience. The town's population would swell and shrink with the seasons, attracting tourists in the summer months with the promise of boating and fishing on the reservoir. This transient nature of the population, coupled with the community's reticence toward involving themselves in each other's lives, created an environment ripe for someone like Ray to exploit. While the 90s saw a societal shift towards recognizing and addressing the plight of marginalized groups, in Elephant Butte, these issues remained largely unspoken. The women targeted by Ray, many involved in sex work or struggling with addiction, were often unseen and unheard by society. This social climate made these women easy prey for Ray, their disappearances unnoticed, their cries for help unheard. As we delve into the details of David Parker Ray's crimes, it is crucial to remember the backdrop against which they were committed. A small, isolated town, a society indifferent to its most vulnerable members, and a time of economic hardship. All these elements combine to create the perfect storm, enabling a predator to operate undetected for decades. The first recorded victim of Ray's reign of terror was a woman named Cynthia Vigil. In 1999, Ray, along with his accomplice Cindy Hendy, kidnapped Vigil from a parking lot in Albuquerque. She was a sex worker, an occupation that Ray specifically targeted due to the lack of attention their disappearances often received. Cynthia was held captive in what Ray chillingly referred to as his toy box, a trailer equipped with an array of torture devices. For 3 days, Cynthia endured unimaginable torture. Ray had a tape he would play for his victims, a horrifyingly detailed script outlining the torment they were about to undergo. But Cynthia's will to survive was stronger than Ray's sadistic intent. On the 3rd day of her captivity, she managed to pick the lock of her chains while Ray was out, stabbing Hendy with an ice pick and escaping to a nearby house where the police were called. Kelly Garrett was another victim of Ray's cruelty, although her story didn't come to light until after Vigil's escape. In 1996, Ray's daughter Jessie, who was also complicit in her father's crimes, had drugged Garrett, her own friend, and delivered her to Ray. Like Cynthia, Kelly was subjected to Ray's perverse fantasies in the toy box. Unlike Cynthia, however, Kelly was returned to society, but not before Ray had used drugs to erase her memory of the ordeal. Her story was dismissed as a drug-induced nightmare until the chilling truth emerged years later. Colleen Kelly McGonigal was another victim who lived to tell her tale. Abducted in 1996 while hitchhiking, she was held captive and tortured for several days before being released with no memory of her ordeal due to drug-induced amnesia. Kelly's plight would remain unknown until 1999, when the FBI launched an investigation into Ray's activities following Cynthia Vigil's escape. These women, among others, were the known victims of David Parker Ray. Their stories offer a terrifying glimpse into the depth of his sadism and the lengths to which he would go to satisfy his depraved desires. However, the full extent of Ray's crimes remains obscured. His meticulous record-keeping hinted at the possibility of numerous victims, yet many have never been identified. Despite the courage of those who came forward, the overall picture of Ray's reign of terror is incomplete, the true number of his victims lost in the vast expanse of the New Mexico desert. As the horrifying tales of Ray's victims began to unfold, law enforcement found itself grappling with a case of unimaginable complexity and horror. The New Mexico State Police and the Federal Bureau of Investigation initiated an extensive investigation following Cynthia Vigil's escape, one that would ultimately span years and cross multiple states. The toy box was a critical piece of evidence. The chilling assortment of torture devices, combined with Ray's audio tapes and the testimonials of survivors, painted a gruesome picture of the horrors endured by the women who fell into Ray's sadistic clutches. Investigators also discovered Ray's meticulous diaries, which contained explicit and detailed accounts of the tortures he inflicted. The vastness of the New Mexico desert posed a significant challenge to the investigators. Ray's victims were often drugged and disoriented, making it difficult for them to provide accurate locations where they were taken or where they may have been dumped. A number of searches were conducted in the desert near Elephant Butte, but the harsh and unforgiving terrain made the task of locating potential grave sites daunting. Despite these difficulties, law enforcement was relentless in their pursuit of justice. The FBI sought assistance from the public, urging anyone with information about Ray's activities to come forward. As a result, tips flowed in from across the country, reflecting the wide net Ray had seemingly cast in his search for victims. In the meantime, Ray's accomplices faced the law. His girlfriend, Cindy Hendy, was charged and later pled guilty to multiple counts related to the kidnappings and tortures. Ray's daughter, Jessie, was also arrested and charged. The investigation also drew attention from the media, with coverage extending nationwide. The story of the toy box killer shocked the nation, highlighting the monstrous depths to which human depravity could sink. It also served as a stark reminder of the many missing women whose fates remain unknown, victims not only of Ray, but of a society that often overlooks the marginalized and the vulnerable. Yet, for all the effort, the true extent of Ray's crimes remains unclear. Despite the wealth of evidence and the testimonies of survivors, many questions remain unanswered. The number of his victims, the locations of their bodies, and the full scope of his interstate activities continue to be shrouded in mystery, a grim testament to the chilling effectiveness of Ray's reign of terror. While the investigation intensified, the law enforcement agencies also worked diligently on developing a psychological profile of David Parker Ray. This criminal profile was essential in understanding Ray's motivations, behavioral patterns, and methods, which were crucial in identifying potential victims and locating possible burial sites. Ray was an enigma. His childhood was marked by reports of abuse, and experts believe his early experiences may have played a significant role in shaping his deviant sexual proclivities and his apparent lack of empathy. Ray had a particular fascination with sadomasochistic sexual practices, which he incorporated into his horrific crimes. Despite his monstrous acts, Ray was known to lead a seemingly normal life. He was a mechanic by trade and a father. This stark contrast between his private and public personas is characteristic of many serial killers, a phenomenon often referred to as compartmentalization. This ability to maintain a facade of normality allowed Ray to blend into society without arousing suspicion. Ray's crimes were meticulously planned and executed, indicative of his high intelligence and resourcefulness. His toy box was a testament to his methodical and organized nature. These traits, coupled with his ability to manipulate and control others, were instrumental in his ability to carry out his crimes undetected for several years. The crime scene, the trailer filled with torture devices and the chilling audio tapes, indicated Ray's desire for complete control over his victims, both physically and psychologically. He seemed to derive pleasure not just from the physical torture, but also from the fear and psychological torment he instilled in his victims. His choice of victims, primarily women living on the fringes of society, was strategic. These were individuals whose disappearance often went unnoticed or unreported, making them easy targets. This pattern suggested a cunning and opportunistic predator, acutely aware of societal blind spots and exploiting them to his advantage. Ray's collaboration with his girlfriend and daughter further complicated the profile. His ability to involve others in his crimes suggested a charismatic and persuasive personality, capable of convincing his accomplices to participate in his sadistic activities. The portrait painted by this criminal profile was chillingly complex. A man who was intelligent, methodical, and ruthless, capable of monstrous acts while maintaining a veneer of normality. Yet this profile also proved instrumental in the ongoing investigation, offering critical insights into the mind of David Parker Ray and providing a framework for understanding the scope of his crimes. In the course of the investigation, several breakthroughs were pivotal in exposing Ray's crimes. One such moment came when a woman named Cynthia Vigil managed to escape from Ray's trailer after enduring 3 days of torture. She ran through the desert, naked and shackled, finally reaching a nearby home where the owner called the police. Cynthia's testimony was a key turning point in the case against Ray. She provided a detailed account of the horrors she had endured, giving the investigators the first real insight into the extent of Ray's sadism. Furthermore, her escape led law enforcement to the location of Ray's toy box. The discovery of this trailer filled with torture devices served as physical evidence of the crimes Cynthia had described, corroborating her testimony and giving investigators a tangible link to the atrocities Ray had committed. Items recovered from the toy box were sent for forensic analysis. The results were deeply disturbing. DNA from multiple women was found on various instruments, indicating that Cynthia was not the only victim. This evidence was crucial in establishing that Ray was a serial offender, and it buttressed the prosecution's case against him. Another significant breakthrough came when a videotape was discovered among Ray's possessions. This tape showed another victim, Kelly Garrett, who had been reported missing years earlier. Kelly was tracked down, and her testimony added another layer to the mounting evidence against Ray. In addition to these, law enforcement also discovered a diary kept by Ray's daughter, Jessie. This diary provided a chilling account of her father's crimes and confirmed the involvement of Ray's girlfriend, Cindy Hendy, in the atrocities. These pieces of evidence painted a picture of a deeply disturbed man who not only committed heinous crimes but also involved his family in his perverse activities. As the evidence mounted, so did the charges against David Parker Ray. Each new piece of evidence, each witness testimony, brought investigators closer to understanding the full extent of Ray's crimes. The case that was being built against him was formidable, and it left little room for doubt about his guilt. Yet, as the evidence was being compiled, the investigators were about to face a new challenge: how to secure a conviction against a man who had mastered the art of manipulation and deception. David Parker Ray was arrested in March 1999, his reign of terror finally coming to an end. With the evidence gathered, a trial was set in motion that would shock the nation and expose the depths of Ray's depravity. The courtroom was a study in tension. Those in attendance sat in a state of uneasy anticipation, aware they were about to hear details of horrific acts committed against numerous women. The prosecution presented a case that was as detailed as it was damning, their arguments bringing a chilling clarity to the crimes Ray had perpetrated. The prosecution's case hinged on the testimonies of Cynthia Vigil and Kelly Garrett, as well as the physical evidence obtained from the toy box. Each account was a harrowing tale of survival, their stories painting a picture of a man who took sadistic pleasure in the abuse and torture of his victims. The defense, however, tried to cast doubt on the credibility of the victims, pointing to their troubled pasts and substance abuse issues. Ray himself, ever the manipulator, maintained his innocence throughout the trial. He claimed the acts were consensual and attempted to portray himself as a misunderstood practitioner of extreme BDSM activities. The public reaction to the trial was one of deep shock and revulsion. The details of the case that emerged in the media were almost beyond comprehension. The extent of Ray's sadism, his manipulation, and his ability to involve others in his horrifying activities stunned the nation. Despite the defense's attempts to discredit the victims, the jury was not swayed. The evidence was overwhelming, and the testimonies of the victims were compelling. The diary entries of his daughter, the DNA evidence, the chilling toy box, all pointed to one conclusion: David Parker Ray was a monster. The trial concluded with Ray being found guilty on numerous charges. However, the verdict was just the beginning. The aftermath of the trial, the sentences, and the ongoing investigations into Ray's possible other victims would continue to unfold, revealing more aspects of his dark, twisted world. To comprehend the depths of David Parker Ray's depravity, we must delve into the realm of psychological analysis, attempting to untangle the intricate web of motives and past traumas that possibly contributed to his horrific actions. Ray's childhood was characterized by abuse and neglect. Raised by his grandfather, he was exposed to extreme physical violence from an early age. His father, a convicted felon, was seldom present, but when he was, he introduced young Ray to sadomasochistic pornography. This early exposure to sexual violence could have desensitized him and distorted his perception of normal sexual relationships. Psychologists theorize that Ray likely suffered from antisocial personality disorder, often associated with serial killers. This disorder is characterized by a disregard for the rights of others, lack of empathy, and a propensity for deceitful and manipulative behavior, all traits that were apparent in Ray's interactions with his victims and his manipulative stance during his trial. Ray's predilection for sadistic sexual practices may have stemmed from a condition known as sexual sadism disorder. Individuals with this disorder derive sexual pleasure from inflicting pain, suffering, or humiliation on others. According to the American Psychiatric Association, this disorder is distinguished from acts of mutual consent by the element of non-consent, harm, or the threat of harm. Ray's toy box, filled with instruments designed for torture, and his audio tapes played for his victims, suggesting a perverse satisfaction derived from their fear, align closely with this diagnosis. Beyond these potential diagnoses, Ray's actions also reveal a deeply ingrained need for power and control. His meticulous planning, his toy box, and his manipulation of others to participate in his crimes suggest an individual who relished not just the act of violence, but also the control he wielded over his victims' lives. While these psychological insights may offer some understanding of the twisted mind behind the monstrous acts, they in no way justify or excuse Ray's actions. The cruelty and sadism that Ray inflicted on his victims is a testament to his own inhumanity, and the pain he caused is a stark reminder of the darkness that can lurk within the human psyche. The reverberations of David Parker Ray's heinous crimes were felt far beyond the confines of his infamous toy box. The impact on the community of Elephant Butte, New Mexico, a small, close-knit town of only about 1,500 residents, was profound. A pallor of shock and disbelief descended upon this tight-knit community. The case cast a long, dark shadow on the town's reputation, transforming it from a tranquil lakeside retreat into a chilling crime scene. The residents grappled with the horrifying knowledge that such monstrous acts had occurred in their midst, struggling to reconcile the tranquil life they knew with the grim reality that had been unveiled. The survivors of Ray's torturous reign, women forever marked by their traumatic experiences, faced a lifelong struggle to reclaim their lives. Their physical wounds may have healed, but the psychological scars etched deep within their psyche were harder to mend. The courage they exhibited in coming forward, in testifying against Ray, and in continuing to live their lives despite the horror they had endured, is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. The case also had significant implications in the realm of media, sparking a renewed dialogue on the nature of evil and the human capacity for cruelty. The gruesome details of Ray's crimes, his meticulously constructed toy box, and the calculated manipulation of his victims, became fodder for countless news reports, documentaries, and true crime podcasts. Media outlets grappled with the task of presenting the grim reality of Ray's actions without sensationalizing the violence or exploiting the victim's suffering. The David Parker Ray case also served as a stark reminder of the importance of vigilance and community solidarity. It underscored the imperative for individuals to look out for their neighbors, to question irregularities, and to report suspected wrongdoing. As a community, Elephant Butte rallied together in the wake of this chilling revelation, vowing to protect its residents and ensure that such a travesty would never occur within its boundaries again. In the aftermath of the case, the legacy of David Parker Ray is one marred by horror and revulsion, forever imprinted on the collective memory of a community that will always bear the scars of his monstrous actions. His name has become synonymous with sadistic cruelty, a chilling reminder of the darkness that can exist within the human psyche. Yet, amidst this darkness, the resilience of his survivors shines a light on the indomitable human spirit, a beacon of hope in the face of unimaginable horror. Yet, even as the curtains of this horrifying tale draw to a close, unanswered questions persist, echoing hauntingly in the corridors of our minds. The full extent of Ray's atrocities remains largely unknown. Authorities believe that he may have been responsible for the deaths of more than his known victims, a theory that only adds another layer of horror to an already nightmarish saga. The role of his accomplices, too, remains shrouded in ambiguity. How much did they truly know of Ray's depraved actions? Were they willing participants or merely pawns manipulated by a master of coercion? The level of their complicity in Ray's horrific acts is a matter of contention that continues to cast a long, cold shadow on the case. Then there is the deeply troubling question of why. Why did a man transform into such a monster? What triggers in an individual's life could lead them down such a path of sadistic brutality? The answers to these queries, if they exist at all, are buried with David Parker Ray, leaving us only with speculation and conjecture. The case of David Parker Ray is a chilling reminder of the depths of depravity that human beings can sink to. It throws into stark relief the terrifying paradox of the human condition, the capacity for both unspeakable evil and incredible resilience. His victims, survivors who emerged from the darkness of his toy box, have shown a spirit of survival that defies comprehension. Their stories, while harrowing, underline the remarkable strength of the human spirit, the ability to endure and to rise from the ashes of trauma with indomitable courage. Yet, the legacy of David Parker Ray continues to cast a long, chilling shadow across the sands of Elephant Butte. His name, a grim reminder of the monstrous darkness that can lurk in the human heart, is a horrifying testament to the evil that men do. The echoes of his heinous crimes still resonate, a stark reminder of the vigilance needed within communities, the importance of looking out for one another, and the necessity of confronting and reporting anomalies. This tale of darkness is a call for light, for awareness, and for compassion. It's a call that should never, ever go unanswered. Thanks for listening. This has been Serial Killers with Ben Carter. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you'd like to support the show, subscribe to the Forbidden Knowledge Network on Patreon. Subscribe now.